Good Monday morning, my peeps. It's Adrienne Talks. And today I wanted to talk about the new year. Because depending if you're like me, this is a new year for my business, or you might be in the middle of your year if your fiscal year is January to December, but mine's July to June. So this is going to work for anybody, wherever you're at in your year. But I really wanted to talk about it because I think so many of us kind of breeze through, right? And just, another year starts and we just kind of keep on keeping on. And so I know that this time of year, there were a lot of big goals that were hit. And there were a lot of big goals that were left behind from people I'm working with, for myself. And a lot of people kind of go, where do I go from here? So, whether you're feeling like it was a great year or not a great year, either way, a lot of times we want to just keep on going. And I always know that you have to take a minute for quite a few things. And we're going to talk about them. Like, what I do is I start by playing my year in my head like a movie. Now, I am very forgetful. So you might be able to do that without looking, but I sort of bring up my calendar and I sort of look at my calendar or even scroll through your photo reel, whatever it is that, might help you look at your numbers for work, different things like that. So I really kind of get together what all happened in this past year. And I think about what I'm proud of, you know, places I fell short, things that I want to increase for the upcoming year. So I sort of really just look at everything. Um, and when you're playing the movie, there might be some tears, there might be some anger, there might be some laughter, right? There might be some happiness. If you've watched Inside Out, all those things. So I kind of keep playing that movie until I can just view it from afar. Like, let the emotions come through a couple times and then just like, okay, now with the good times and the bad times overall, how did I feel about this year, right? And one thing I really try to do is make sure I spend a little bit more time on the good parts because we have a tendency to dust over those as we're playing this movie in our head. There's a lot of things that have happened. You see it a lot on Facebook. A lot of times when you talk to people and you say, "How are you?" the first thing that comes to their head is something maybe not so great that happened, right? But there's usually a lot of really good things in between there. And so I highly recommend taking a few extra minutes to really look for some of those good parts because I feel like it's very easy to remember and focus on the bad things, and we forget to celebrate the good things. So when you're playing this movie again, maybe take a couple extra seconds to look at some of the spots where you were feeling really good and things were going really well and you were really excited because I really do think we dust over those way too much. And you guys, those are the beauty. Those are the beautiful parts. And sometimes those little bad spots, we wouldn't have had those happy moments without those, right? Things happen, they cause and effect. So I just want you to make sure you take a little bit of time. Yes, definitely remember the bad too, but really make sure you're remembering the good. Um, so when I kind of look back, I knew that a big goal for me was to stop comparing myself to anyone throughout the year. And when I look back on it, I'm really proud. I set my pace where I wanted to be, what I wanted to do. And when I hit it, I was proud of myself. And I didn't worry about it if I didn't, or if someone was doing more or less. I just let myself look at my goals, celebrate them. And if I fell short, hey, what could I do a little bit different? Um, I didn't need to be jealous or hard on myself if my goals weren't happening or bigger or smaller than someone else's. You know, I realized this year that that's actually the best part of being you and loving who you are is that you get to celebrate your milestones. Even if your company doesn't celebrate your goal, right? Say you just want $100 so that you can have a great date night every month. When you hit that $100, you're going to take somebody out, right? Go out with friends, do whatever. Um, then you share that. Be thankful, be proud. It doesn't matter if somebody else's goal is $1,000 a month and yours is 100. Either person gets to celebrate whatever they want, wherever they want. And I felt really good that I didn't compare myself this year with others, but I spent more time, you know, celebrating my wins. But I still know that when I look back on that as a whole, I still brushed over quite a few wins. And so I know that again this year, I'm going to take a little bit more time to really think at the end of a month when I hit those goals that I wanted, I should be dang proud instead of just being like, yep, okay, I did it. Now on to this month. Take some time to really pat yourself on the back because you guys, that's what it's all about. We just sort of hit a goal and then we're like, okay, we do it again this month or we do it again next month or whatever it is. And we forget to take the time to be like, but I did it. I did it. Everything I set out to do, I did. And so I just want to make sure that you take that time. I also know I had a huge goal with my company this year. I earned it 2 years ago and I really wanted to do it again. And I was on track earlier in the year and I was so excited. But, some things happened. Some of it might have been my focus. I'm pretty sure it was. And then some other things happened too. But I was kind of about a month ago, I was sort of like, well, I don't think I'm going to hit it. It's kind of out of reach at this point. And I knew I was too far off. And so part of me was just going to let it go and just let me finish my year. And this is where surrounding yourself with great people helps because one of my accountability partners, Sherry, was like, whoa, wait a minute. Like, what other goals do you have? Like, what other things did you want to hit? And I had a couple of goals, but I always pick the biggest one so that I'm focusing on one thing, right? So that if I hit that goal, all the other things should fall into place, is kind of how I do it. So when she said that, I started thinking about it and I was like, oh, yeah, well, there were a couple things, but I knew I would hit them if I hit my first goal. But I had lost track of where I was at with those other goals. And so I really looked at my second goal and I was like, oh my gosh, I was really close. And so Sherry and I started talking about it, and I really realized that, man, I am so glad she said something because I don't know that I would have hit that second huge goal because I wasn't really focusing on it. And so when I let the bigger one go, that, I was sad I had to let go, all of a sudden I got excited again. And I was so excited and I worked at it and I did it. And you guys, sometimes you just have to be willing to refocus. You have to, and that's where I had to look back and be like, I can take this as a good thing instead of like being hard on myself for not hitting the goal that I was able to bob and weave. So whether you're mid-year or you're starting a new year, make sure you have your goals. I know you're always going to pick the highest goal, but make sure you have a couple others because you can't be afraid to change. If things aren't working the way you wanted, you guys, sometimes you can just flip it. And when I flipped this and really like got excited again and started focusing, I totally hit this goal. And there's a lot of nice perks that come with this goal. And I was like, oh my goodness, now I'm super proud. So I could have ended the year like I was going to, which was just let it ride and say I didn't, do that main goal I wanted. But instead, I just refocused a little bit. And now I'm like, whoa, this is amazing. Look at all these things that I get that I would have missed out on if I wouldn't have been willing to just look at where I was at and just change a little bit of where I was going. So I think a huge part of when you're starting a new year is to be able to forgive yourself for anything that you might be holding against yourself, right? So I had to kind of forgive myself that maybe I didn't work as hard as I should have to hit that big goal. And maybe I didn't celebrate those wins as much as I should have, right? Because maybe if I would have celebrated those more, I would have hit that bigger goal. But you guys, I can acknowledge it and then I can forgive myself for it, right? Don't hold that negative feeling. Don't sit there and go, I should have, I would have, I could have, I whatever. Because if you do that, you're going to start your new year with this anger or this, unhappiness and from last year instead of learning and growing from it. And so that's why I say keep playing that movie until you can see that like you learned and you're growing. Because when you learn and you grow, I promise you this coming year will be everything you wanted it to be. If you can let yourself realize that, hey, half of the journey is the ups and downs, right? That's what your journey is, the ups and downs. So if you don't have the downs, you can't have the ups. So instead of looking at it as like a failure or holding it against yourself, I would just love for you to be able to look at it and say, I learned this from it and I'm going to grow this way. So when I was looking back on my year, I have lots of areas I check into. I know I'm mostly talking about business and I will, because that's what, this podcast is about. but I do that to make sure I'm on target. And if you want the list, I have a link that where you can grab the list of the areas that I focus on. Business is one of them, but I have a few other areas that I really, really look at because you guys, life is all about balance, right? And we get to choose our own balance because, again, you are you and I am me. But I want all the buckets of your life to be balanced the way you want them. So there are so many that you might want to look into and say, oh, okay, this one, maybe I didn't put as much effort into this year and I'd like to change that. Right. So again, I'll put the link in the notes. So if you want to grab that list, just hop in there and grab that list so you can look at it if you're starting a new year or you're even mid-year. Like I said, I always do this mid-year too, to reevaluate. So the other thing I just wanted to say is I know a couple podcasts ago, I talked about excuses. So when you're in a new or mid-year, I always want you to ask yourself, at the end of this year, what would make you feel absolutely successful, right? And it can be in all those buckets. You can pick one bucket, whatever you want to do. I pick all my buckets. I go through all of them and pick what would make me feel like I did amazing this year and I am right on track, right where I want to be, and I can celebrate. Okay. I want you to feel why it would make you feel amazing, right? Write it down, draw a picture, insert your picture into another photo, right? Like if you're working on a trip or you want to have more date nights or more family nights or whatever, like put that in a picture so it's in front of you so you can see it every day. And then once you have all this worked out so that you know that you will feel amazing when this happens, I want you to write a list of the things that you need to do, like add to your life and the things you need to let go in your life to make it happen. Right. So maybe you have to find more encouraging people who will push you. Maybe you have to stop playing Candy Crush. Maybe you have to get up an hour earlier. Maybe schedule 15 minutes that's non-negotiable work time for your business, right? There are things you can add and there are things you can take away, right? From our lives that we know could definitely change the trajectory of our year. So I want you to really look at that. You guys write it down. Please write it down so that you can always go back and go, oh man, I really was doing good about getting up an hour early and then I quit, right? Or I was doing really good about not playing Candy Crush and now it's back on my phone after I deleted it, right? Because you guys, it's so easy to get back into our regular habits. And I want you to be able to take these couple of things, right? Maybe find one thing you want to add and one thing you want to take away and keep to it this year. Because remember, no one can do this work for you. Your goals are yours. Your commitment are yours. And you get to create that dream life. I wish I could tell you how amazing you are and you'd believe it. But the only person that can tell you how amazing you are and have you believe it is you. So I want you to come to the Facebook community and share something you want to do differently this year or the rest of this year, depending on where you are in your year. And one thing you're going to do to make sure that that goal happens, because I think we can learn a lot from each other on what we're going to take away and what we're going to add to make this year the best year. So you guys, until next week, when Adrienne talks, realize the power is within you.